Hi Trinity Rock and Pop drummers, hope you're well. This is a quick video for you about Eddie Floyd, Knock on Wood, from Trinity Rock and Pop Drums Grade 2. It's a banging series of grades, I'm always banging on about it, and it's a banging tune. I've been asked to talk about this one quite a lot. This is one, Grade 2, which is super popular. It's got some really cool, iconic stuff in it. It's also got some stuff that, compared to what we saw at Grade 1, as you'd expect, there's a bit more detail in there. So there's some cool ideas that don't really feature at Grade 1. Specifically, I'd say hitting a push on the crash cymbal, and hitting the upbeat quavers in the drum fill. So we'll have a little look at that. Right, we're coming at the top. We're straight in at the beginning. So there's quite a bit of stuff, I reckon, in that first line. First bar. So straight away here, we're playing quite a busy, relative again to what we saw before at Grade 1, kick drum part. We've got so grooves like this, I mean, what we often do in the sessions here is, if it isn't coming instinctively straight away, which is totally fine, there's no reason why it should, we just take that single bar and we'll just groove around on that for a little bit, honestly. The first step is just working out what's going on, so doing your counting, and hopefully here, by the time you get to Grade 2, you've got a little bit of understanding of music theory and how we count the notes and the grooves and note values and that kind of stuff. This is an eighth note sort of based groove, there's eighth notes on the hi-hat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... I always think with eighth notes on the hi-hat, or ride or whatever, what that gives you is a little grid that you can then drop notes on. So we've got the kick on beat 1, the snare on beat 2, we've got kick, kick on 3 and then snare, kick on 4 and. So 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. And like I'm saying, what we'll often do in the session here is just, if the drummer's first getting to grips with that, we'll just play that bar on a loop and get a feel for that. This is bar number 1. Play around with that, take it as slowly as you like, repeat it as many times as you like, it's all good. Groove 2 has got a little quaver rest, hopefully you're identifying that at the start of the second bar on the kick. So this goes quaver rest and then quaver, so we're playing an upbeat quaver, or eighth note, on the and of beat 1. Bar 2 goes like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Again, bar 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and. I'm going to play the first 2 bars and loop them. This is exactly the sort of thing we do in a session here. So, first 2 bars. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Take your time, play it as much as you like, no big thing, just take your time, groove along with it, and just make friends with that a little bit. There's no rush here, and there's certainly no rush to put the music on at full speed and start playing straight away. The thing you've got to realise here, for a lot of people, and this would have been absolutely true of me at Grade 2, is there's just more detail here than we would have been used to previously, so we just need to take a little time to get used to the part we're playing before we can just stick it with the music. On the other hand, if you're quite experienced with that sort of groove and you recognise it, of course, go for it. So, bar number 3 here now, we've got. Now this is a pushed crash cymbal. This is the idea that the crash comes in on the and of a note. Again, the upbeat quaver, or eighth notes. Eighth notes, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Here we're hitting our crash on the last one of those, the and of beat 4. And something that drummers often miss when they're just starting off with this at first is the crash and the kick go together. In this tune, every time you hit a crash, you hit a kick drum along with it as well. Okay, so when we're ready, we could put those first 3 bars together. Hopefully this is making a bit of sense. And then the 4th bar, we've got another upbeat quaver, or upbeat eighth note. This means we're resting on the beat, but we're playing on the and. At the beginning of this bar, it goes 1 and. So the crash with kick, again, comes in on the and of beat 1. 1 and. Now the next bit has got a tie, or two notes tied together. This is something that causes a lot of confusion when drummers first start. What it basically means is the first note lasts for the value of both the notes put together. Effectively, most of the time in rock and pop type of drums, it just means that the second note you don't play. So the cymbal just rings out through both of those notes. Effectively, in this case, you're just resting the second note. So people almost always say, well, what's the point? Why isn't there just a rest? Well, there's a few different answers to that, really. One is on almost all other instruments that you could play, a long note would mean a long sound. So if you're blowing into a trumpet or you're playing a violin or whatever, you, on a longer note, or for example, two notes tied together, you'd make a longer sound. On the drums, it's a little bit different because hitting a drum or a cymbal is basically a single one-off event, isn't it? So on that snare drum hit that I just did, there's no way of saying just on its own whether that was a crotchet or a quaver or whatever, you know, because it's just a single one-off event. So the note value in drumming, although it has the same overall meaning, it tells you something slightly different. It tells you how long you're waiting from that event till the next event, be it a rest or a note or whatever. Whereas on some other, well, most other instruments, it means that, but it also means the length of the sound as well. So it's a slightly different thing. So on all other instruments, that tie would mean that you'd play a longer sound. And often, honestly, if you're playing in depends what band you're playing, if you're playing an orchestra or theatre band or something where the music is notated for all instruments, I mean, you know, it doesn't do our egos much good to say, but we're not a special case. Like, we just get the same notation as everybody else, basically. So that's it. Also, there are times when it's quite useful to know, like, in the way that you're playing, especially if the music isn't totally prescribed for you. There might be times when you'd want to interpret it in certain ways. So a long note, like two notes tied together, you might do as a buzz or a cymbal swell or something like that. It's just useful to know. But I get why it's a bit confusing at first. It's one of those things that the more you play, the more experience you get, it just kind of disappears, you know. Cool, and then beat 3 and beat 4, 16th notes and then 8th notes. Put on 4 of this tune, here it comes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So 1 and 2, we just leave, that's the note that's tied to, and then 3E and a 4 and. Okay, I'm going to play the whole first line one time again. One time again, a bit quicker. Cool, so there's loads of detail in that first line, isn't there? That's one of the most sort of detailed bits of the whole tune. When the verse drops in, we're in business. It's a bit more of a simple groove here. Kick and snare, 1, 2, 3 and 4 and. On a loop, here it comes. Loads of that. When we get to bar 12, there's a little tiny cool variation where we play the old pea soup, open and close hi-hat. I've got a whole video about opening and closing the hi-hat, and it specifically talks about doing it in that place, actually, at first, opening on the and of beat 4. So I'll link to that in the description below. Bar 13 goes back to the original verse groove. Now at 17, it's like thunder lightning bit, it goes to a different kick drum part. Here we've got 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Here comes the whole thing with the hi-hat, bar 17. So again, just make friends with it, man. You sit with that in a session here. We typically, if drummers were just getting into it, sit with it, groove around it. Ideally, as again, or certainly if you'd had lessons here, by this point, you'd be kind of comfortable with those sort of bass drum variations, honestly. We would have worked previously on little groove sheets that have that kind of stuff in there. And the idea is that coordination isn't too out of nowhere by the time you're opening a grade 2 book. Cool, and then you've got this bit at the end. That's the knocking on the wood bit. So it goes 1 and 2 and 3. So quavers all the way, 1 and 2 and 3 with a big crotchet quarter note at the end. I'm going to play the whole of the last line, first page. Here it comes. 17, my mistake. Nice accented notes there, but. The chorus has got a similar feel to the intro. So the intro is kind of a reference to the chorus before the chorus has actually happened. The chorus goes. So first bar of the chorus. 22, same as bar 1 of the whole song. Second bar of the chorus. Same as bar 2 of the whole song. Third bar of the chorus, slightly different. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2/8 notes on the snare at the end. Now we've got some upbeat eighths or quavers, offbeat or upbeat quavers here. We rest on the beat, which is the little squiggle that looks like a little funny little letter Y, and then we've got the quavers on their own, or an upbeat eighth. You can tell that's a quaver because it's got the little line coming off the note stem on the ands. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll count that bar in again. This is bar 25, the last line of the last bar of the first line, second page. Here we go. 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2 and 3. Beat 4 at the end is rested. You can see the big quarter note rest there at the end. Okay, we're going to play the whole chorus, first line one time. Hope that's cool. Now the instrumental bit. This is something that actually in the little demo version that I've recorded on this channel, if you've watched it, I've played it wrong, so thanks for pointing that out. Can't get it all right all the time. So yeah, man, this bit goes. A bit going on here. We've got some lovely quarter notes happening on the snare. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 8th notes on the hi-hat. The kick, unlike in my video version where I just was hammering out the kick on every beat, it's on the first beat of the bar only. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. There's also a crescendo. It goes from P, piano, soft, up to F, forte, strong. Okay, hope that's cool. On the last bar there, it goes 1, which is a hi-hat, snare and kick. 1, rest on 2, 3, rest on 4. Just quarter notes on and off there. Okay, cool. Now we've got repeat marks. So at this point, we loop all the way back to the verse, bar 5 in the music. So you've got here the first and second time section. If you haven't seen these before, what it means is everything between the repeat marks, which are from the start of the verse to the end of the instrumental, or bar 5 to bar 20, where are we, 26, 7, 8, 29A, so bar 5 to 29A, everything is repeated between those two bars. Now the first time around, as in before you've repeated, you play what we just did, which is the instrumental, that's why it's got the 1 over it. First time around you play that. Second time around, you jump to what we call the second time bar or second time section, which is the outro, okay? So from the beginning of the song, you play the intro, you play the verse, exactly as written, you play the chorus, then the instrumental, you then go back and play the whole of the verse again, and at the end of the first bit of chorus that goes, you're now going to jump to the outro. Here we are in the outro then, onto the right cymbal. All right, so very much like the chorus, first bit of the outro, same as the first bar of the chorus and same as the first bar of all, except your right stick, assuming you're right-handed, is on the ride rather than the hi-hat. Next bar, same as the second bar of the chorus, except you're on the ride instead of hi-hat. Third bar of the outro, so this is now 28B, really, well, the same as the third bar of the intro, right? Except you've got that crash on the and of beat 4. Well, not except you've got that crash, and you've got that crash just like you did in the third bar. And then on the fourth bar here, so 2 bars from the end, we've got upbeat again, quavers or 8th notes On the ands, this is now crash and kick together. So the and of beat 1, the and of beat 2, and the and of beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and. The and of beat 3 there is tied to beat 4, so we just let that ring out. We don't sound that note at the end that's tied to, that gets incorporated into the previous crash. There are 3 crashes in that bar. 1 and 2 and 3 and. Okay, and then the last one of all is hi-hat and kick together, beat 1 and beat 4. Okay, going to play the whole of the outro one time. 2, 3, 4. Cool, I hope that all makes a bit of sense. Now, clearly, what you can do, as well as all this lovely counting music theory stuff, which I wholeheartedly recommend you embrace, is, of course, listen to it as well. So it's totally, totally fine to do a mixture of hearing the track and hearing where those pushes come. In fact, definitely do that as well. Hearing it and getting a feel for where those pushes come in. I would recommend doing that as well as embracing like music theory, reading, counting, note values, all that kind of stuff. Both of those things are completely amazing. I think completely brilliant, like just systems that open up a whole world of amazing playing and a whole load of possibilities for drummers. I think sometimes it's easy for people to think of drummers as like, oh, I read music, or this musician does theory, and then on the other hand, you either do that or you play by ear, and as if those two things are separate. Totally do both those things. Listen to the song as much as you can. Go on to, you might go onto YouTube, watch all the videos, because that's what they're there for. They're to get a feel for the songs. But get your book open. What I say to all the guys and girls who come here is, get your book open, stick the video on, or listen to the demo version that comes with the audio here, and just follow your part, get a feel for that. You can blend together your ear skills, hearing those pushes and all that kind of stuff, with the counting and the note values and all that good stuff as well. Hope that's cool, and I hope it's helpful. Any questions, give us a shout. See you soon. Thanks a lot.